loans from all these banks that had been supporting the apartheid government for all these years. But he knew that writing was on the wall. He knew that the people internally would never be turned around. He knew that our determination was beginning to bear fruit. He knew that we would not give up the struggle until we were free, but we would not have been able to do that if that movement outside, that non-violent movement of pressure, had not occurred. Let me tell you a story. In 1985, Archbishop Tutu and I invited Senator Ted Kennedy to come to South Africa. We had looked at the situation. There were countries in the global south who had joined the movement to put pressure, economic and other pressure, on the South African government. In Europe, the Scandinavian countries had joined that same movement. There were debates about boycott and divestment just about everywhere, and also in the United States the pressure had been growing. And so we decided, what if we invited somebody like Senator Kennedy to come to South Africa to see for himself what we were asking him to do and why. So he came, and one day we took him to a resettlement camp. A resettlement camp was one of those places. Remember, South Africa divided itself into white South Africa and black South Africa. 77% of the land was white, and black people could only live there if they have a pass by the suffrage of white South Africa. You go without your pass, and you will be stopped, you will be frisked, you will be humiliated, you will be jailed, you will be deported to your so-called homeland. And I took him to one of those places outside of a city called Bloemfontein. And the name of the place was Onverwacht. If you translate that, it says unexpected. And the places were given these names by the people themselves. Even they, knowing what the South African government had done to so many of our people, even they thought this was unexpected. It was so barren. It was so desolate. We met with the mothers that morning, and then one of the mothers said, "Can we take you outside?" And the senator said yes. So they took him outside and they walked a few hundred yards to the graveyard. And they walked him through the graveyard. And what struck Ted Kennedy was that almost every other grave, and sometimes more than that, was the grave of a child. Well, I knew why they had died. In the early 1970s, I went to another homeland, another resettlement area called Dimbaza in the old Ciskei. And we talked to a mother who told us how they did not have enough to eat. And we asked her, "What do you do?" And so she said, "Well, I cook porridge sometimes when we have it, but it's never enough for my children." And I said, "Well, then what do you do?" She says, "I rip up newspaper into small pieces and I mix it with the food to make it more, so that my children can eat." And they eat it, and of course, they die of it. And so we walked from grave to grave, from grave to grave. And on the graves, mothers in Africa sometimes put the medicine that they gave their children while they were ill. And Ted Kennedy asked, "What does that mean? All these little bottles, half filled with medicine sometimes, half filled with tablets." And they said, "The white man put us here, but the white man could not protect our children." And so we went to the white man's clinic and asked for medicine, but even his medicine could not save our children. That was the turning point for Ted Kennedy. When we returned to the house of that mother, we could see on his face, he was so emotional. So it was not my clever arguments about why sanctions would work that I have worked out so well before. was not my eloquence. It was not the way in which I presented the case for sanctions that did it. What did it was the children. And it's always the children. It's about the children. Tonight, it is the children of Gaza. It is the children of Ramallah. It is the children of Bethlehem. It is the children of the refugee camps, of Shatila camp and of Rafah camp. It is always the children. It's the children who make it real. It's the children who put it all into perspective. It is the children who make it inescapable. It is the children who confront us with the limits of our inhumanity. It is the children who are the touchstone, the litmus test of our humanity, of what is left of it. It is the children who are holy ground, because it is the children who finally stand between us and our God. There are, of course, also things that are similar in South Africa and in Israel. There are those Israelis, God-fearing Jews and secular Jews, who know the difference between right and wrong, who know the difference between justice and injustice, who know the difference between a false peace and real peace. There are those who have the courage to stand up and to say, not in my name and not in God's name. There are those who have the wisdom to know that there is no future without reconciliation, and there is no future without justice, and there is no future without Ubuntu, which is what we had to say to ourselves. And Ubuntu is that rich African word that talks of a way of life in which Africans say we are bound together, one human being to the other. I cannot really live without you. I cannot act as if I can go on in life without you. Your humanity is bound up with my humanity. Anything that I do to hurt you, anything that I do that damages you, diminishes my own humanity. And what I must do when your humanity is taken and pulled to shreds by your own deeds, I must do everything in my power to restore your humanity, because Ubuntu says we belong together, we are bound together, we cannot live without the affirmation of the other as a child of God. That's where our forgiveness for the crimes of apartheid came from. There is no future without that. There are not many of them, these people in Israel, but they are there. They are vilified, and they are despised, and they are stigmatized, and they are persecuted. They are called names. They are young and they are older. They are civilians who say yes to justice, and they are young soldiers who say no to war. They are mothers and fathers for whom their children are precious, and that's why they know that to all parents, all their children are also precious. They are young people who know they do not want to surrender their dreams for themselves, and that's why they are willing to fight so that other children do not have to surrender their dreams for themselves. They know that the future lies in togetherness and not in apartheid, in peace and not in war, in embrace and not in rejection, in the shining hope of justice, not in the dark despair of oppression. We had white people like that. Not many, but we had them. And every day still I thank God for them, because they helped us to prepare our country for reconciliation after the revolution. And no revolution is complete if it does not leave room for reconciliation is our experience. They are courageous, they are brave, they are the Siddiqim, they are the righteous. Join them. Don't just admire them from afar. Don't say good things about them. Just join them. There are lives at stake here. Join them, because this is the country that gives such mindless and blind and unthinking and reason-defying and logic-defeating and death-dealing support. With your complicity, if you do not stand up to say, this is my Kairos moment, the choice that I must make, if it's only for the sake of the children. I happen to believe that just as the anti-apartheid struggle had become, in the 1980s, the choice for people across the world in terms of the authenticity of their faith, in terms of the genuineness of their compassion, in terms of their understanding the need for a different and a better world. Just as the anti-apartheid struggle was that criterion for us then, so the struggle for Palestinian justice is the criterion for us now. This is the time that we must make a choice. It is the test of the authenticity of our faith. It is the touchstone of our compassion now. It is the criterion for our sense of justice now. It is the reflection of our humanity now. So don't look at them and pity them, and don't look at them and sympathize with them. Don't just pray for them. Join them in the struggle, in this time. Now, if you think that you are just a few, that's true. Those on the other side are many more. That's also true. If you think that the voices that you represent are just small and cannot compete with the loud barricades of propaganda that come at you every single day, that's true. But don't you ever believe, please, that what you are doing is too insignificant to matter. Don't you ever underestimate the day of small beginnings. In 1979, Steve Biko was dead, the country was blowing up, the police had killed a young boy in Gugulethu, a township just outside of Cape Town. The funeral was banned by the government, which meant that the government said nobody from outside, not even from the community, just the family, could attend this wedding, and they would make sure with their presence and with their guns that nobody comes. We decided to go anyway. We called for people to come and join us, and everybody that I spoke to said, yes, we'll be there. I said, you understand the danger? Yeah, we do, but it's the time. Look at it. Kids are dying. Kids are dying. Well, when the day came and we went to the Gugulethu bridge to walk across the beach to the township where the funeral would be held, we were only 19. I looked around for all my colleagues who made promises. Nobody ever around. They were not there. Maybe wisely hiding under the bed. What we did have was a small group of people, myself and another Christian colleague and 2 Muslim clerics. A lot of things happened that day. We went to jail together for the whole day, and we had an amazing experience. But because nobody, of course, had any food, the food that was sent by the women from the township was sent back by the police, or so they said. I think they're lying. I thought they took all those wonderful stuff that the Muslim women brought to the jail, all that, the samosas and all of that beautiful stuff, and they ate it all up and said, the prisoners are not allowed to get food from outside. Well, we were hungry. By 6 o'clock in the evening, we said, what are we going to do? And the young Jewish girl who was with us, her name was Rachel, I forget her surname, and Robin Peterson, the other Christian cleric, he brought a sandwich. Rachel brought a chocolate bar. So they took it out and they said, why don't you share this with the rest of us? So I took the chocolate bar, Imam Hassan Solomon's took the sandwich, and just before we wanted to break it and share it, Maulana Farid said to us, why don't you pray, Allan? So I prayed, and Hassan Solomon's prayed, and we asked Rachel to pray, and here we were, all 19 of us in one cell, sharing a chocolate bar, block by block by block, and eats a piece of sandwich. And then we asked, why we eat? Why don't you tell us why you are here? What is it in your faith that brings you here? You knew that there might be a confrontation. You knew that you might go to jail. You knew that the police would not leave us alone. Why did you come? All the others that we invited did not come. Why? So there we were sharing stories of how our faith brought us to this point that we were willing to face the police and go to jail for a young boy whom we did not even know. It was a most amazing moment for us. Well, you need to know that when we went to the bridge, when we got to the bridge, there were all these policemen with guns and tear gas canisters and dogs and armored vehicles, the stuff that you see driving around in Ferguson, Missouri. We saw that then. Everything I see here today, by the way, in terms of police action in these towns where they kill people and where they then try to kill the populace with their helmets and their guns, and that's just like, I see Soweto, I see Guguletu, I see Lingalishle when I watch television here. So I always wondered afterwards, not right then, because when we saw the dogs and we saw the police and we saw the vehicles and we saw everything and the guns, we just thought the first thing that we must do is just to kneel down. And we knelt down and we prayed. I was in the middle, and next to me was Imam Hassan Solomon's, and then next to me on the other side was Maulana Farid Esak. But afterwards I wondered, why would the South African police send this huge force of policemen and dogs and guns? All they did not, the only thing they didn't have was the helicopters. Everything else, why for 19 people? I mean, they knew that we weren't going to turn up in our tens of thousands. They had their surveillance. They knew exactly that we were only 19 people. Why send this? And then I thought, well, it's because they knew better than we did that if you allow this small group of people to challenge our authority on this, tomorrow, 10 more people will think they can do it, and the day after, 10 more people will think, and before you know it, the whole population will be in uprising because they think we are weak. We can just let this happen. So let's crush them from the very... That's why. I think of that every time I think of how it developed. We began the march with 19 people. By the time Nelson Mandela was welcomed out of prison, we had more than 250,000 on the street of Cape Town alone, never mind Johannesburg and Pretoria and Port Elizabeth and Durban and all those other places. Never underestimate the day of small beginnings. I heard where you started tonight. I look at you tonight as you are here, and I think, thank you, God. You are making the right choice. I'm done. Two things. In the book, the second book of Kings, chapter 6, you remember that story where the prophet Elisha is there and he has angered this king, and the king comes with all of his armies and his horses and his soldiers, and Elisha's servant Gehazi says, oh my Lord, look there, all these thousands of people. And Elisha says, don't you see? And he says, see what? And Elijah says, just remember, Gehazi, those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Oh, he says, where? And then he prays, God opened his eyes, and God opened his eyes, and he saw on the mountains all this army of the Lord, and he saw the chariots of fire surrounding Elijah, which a moment ago wasn't there. And Elijah again just simply said to him, remember, those who are with us are more than those who are with them. When you hear all those voices, when you feel small, when you feel you're not making an impression, when you think this is not going anywhere, just remember, it's not true. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. It is true that many are called, but few are chosen, the Bible says. But remember this, that the chosen shall be known by their choices. Many are called, but few are chosen. But the chosen shall be known by their choices. For your sake, for God's sake, for the children's sake, let's make the right choices. Thank you so much for your patience. God bless you all.
Thank you, friends. Allan, you have given us a strong word tonight, a word of challenge, a word of inspiration, a word of hope. And for that, we are very, very grateful to you for not only your presence here with us this weekend, but for all the work that you do at the Desmond Tutu Center, and for your great commitment to justice around the world with so many who are on the margins. And so thank you very much for your strong word tonight. Friends, John Dietraz, you have some auction information, and with that then we'll close. Friends, thank you for being here tonight. Blessings to you and Godspeed you on your way home. We're going to let John say a few announcements, announcing some of the winners, and then you'll be free to take your leave. Thank you again for being here.